The millionaire came to evict the black woman, but everything changed when he saw her with her 3 children. Ethan Warren didn't do mercy. As one of New York's youngest and most ruthless real estate moguls, he'd built his empire on cold calculations and clean exits. Properties were numbers. Tenants were transactions. Emotions were liabilities he couldn't afford. So when a small, foreclosed house in Brooklyn landed on his desk, it should have been simple: serve the papers, clear the property, move on. But that rainy Tuesday morning, something told him to go himself. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was fate. He pulled up to a house with peeling paint and toys scattered across the wet lawn, knocked once firm and professional, and prepared to deliver the news he'd delivered 100 times before. But when the door opened, everything stopped. A woman stood there, early 30s, exhaustion etched into her face but fire still burning in her eyes. Behind her, 3 small faces peeked out, 2 boys and a little girl, all wide-eyed and silent. Naomi Carter's voice shook as she spoke. "Please, I just need a little more time. I lost my job last month. The rent, Ethan had heard every excuse, but then the youngest child, barely 5 years old, stepped forward and handed him a crumpled piece of paper. It was a drawing, a heart, colored in crayon, with the words, "For Mommy," scrawled across it. And in that moment, something cracked inside the man who never let anything crack. What happened next would change both their lives forever. But it wasn't just about saving a house. It was about finding something far more valuable, something Ethan had lost long ago and didn't even know he was searching for. Before we begin, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from and what time it is. If you're new here, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss how this story unfolds. The rain hadn't started yet, but the sky over Manhattan was heavy with the promise of it. Dark clouds hung low over the skyline, casting the city in shades of gray that matched the steel and glass towers rising into the morning air. Ethan Warren stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office on the 42nd floor, hands in the pockets of his tailored charcoal suit, looking out over the city he'd conquered before turning 30. From up here, everything looked small, manageable, controllable. That's how he liked it. His office reflected the man he'd become: minimalist, precise, expensive, without being showy. A sleek desk made of black walnut, 2 leather chairs for clients who rarely stayed long, shelves lined with books on finance, architecture, and strategy. No photographs, no personal touches, nothing that hinted at a life beyond the deals he closed and the properties he acquired. Behind him, the door opened without a knock. Only one person in the building had that privilege. "Morning, Ethan." He didn't turn around. "Morning, Claire." Claire Dawson had been his executive assistant for 6 years. She was efficient, sharp, and one of the few people who could read his moods without asking. She crossed the room and set a leather portfolio on his desk. "3 new acquisitions closed yesterday," she said. "The Tribeca loft sold for $2.3 million, 15% over asking. The commercial property in Soho has 2 interested buyers already, and the Brooklyn foreclosure is ready for final processing." Ethan turned from the window and walked to his desk. He flipped open the portfolio, scanning the documents with practiced efficiency. Numbers, addresses, timelines, everything in order, as always. His eyes lingered on the last file. Brooklyn. A single-family home. Foreclosure due to 6 months of missed payments. Market value, modest. Profit margin, minimal. It was the kind of property his company usually handled through intermediaries: quick, impersonal, efficient. But something about the file caught his attention. "Why is this still on my desk?" he asked. Claire hesitated. "The tenant requested a meeting. She's asked for an extension 3 times. Legal says we've been more than generous, but she keeps calling." Ethan closed the file. "Then send the standard notice and move forward." "I did." She didn't respond. He looked up. "Then send someone to serve the eviction papers in person." Claire nodded but didn't move. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Something else?" "She has 3 kids," Claire said quietly. "Single mother. Husband died 2 years ago." Ethan's jaw tightened. He'd heard every sob story, every plea, every desperate attempt to delay the inevitable. Business wasn't personal. It couldn't be. The moment you let emotions in, you lost control. "That doesn't change the contract," he said flatly. "I know," Claire replied. "I just thought you should know." Ethan picked up the file again, staring at the address printed in neat black letters. 247 Maple Street, Brooklyn. He should hand it off. Let legal handle it. Move on to the next deal. But instead, he heard himself say, "I'll handle this one personally." Claire blinked. "You?" "Yes. Clear my morning." She looked like she wanted to ask why, but she knew better. "Understood. I'll have the car ready in 20 minutes. When she left, Ethan stood alone in his office, the file still in his hand. He told himself it was just due diligence, a small property, a loose end that needed tying up, nothing more. But deep down, in a place he rarely acknowledged, he knew it was something else. Curiosity. Or maybe, just maybe, the faint echo of something he'd buried a long time ago. The drive from Manhattan to Brooklyn took 40 minutes in mid-morning traffic. Ethan sat in the back of his black town car, reviewing emails on his phone, while the city blurred past the tinted windows. The rain had started light at first, then steady, drumming against the roof in a rhythm that filled the silence. His driver, a quiet man named Vernon who'd worked for him for years, navigated the streets with ease. They crossed the bridge, leaving behind the towers of Manhattan for the older, quieter neighborhoods of Brooklyn. The buildings here were different, shorter, brick and wood instead of glass and steel. Trees lined the streets, their branches heavy with late autumn leaves. Families walked along the sidewalks despite the rain, parents with strollers, kids with backpacks, people who looked like they belonged to the place they lived. It was a world Ethan had left behind long ago. The car slowed as they turned onto Maple Street, a tree-lined block of modest, single-family homes. Some were well kept, with fresh paint and tidy lawns. Others showed signs of struggle, peeling siding, overgrown yards, windows covered with sheets instead of curtains. Number 247 was somewhere in between. The house was small, a two-story structure with faded blue paint and a sagging front porch. The lawn was overgrown, dotted with puddles from the rain. A rusty tricycle lay on its side near the front steps. A plastic slide, cracked and sun-bleached, sat half-hidden in the tall grass. Ethan's driver pulled up to the curb and put the car in park. "Want me to wait, sir?" Vernon asked. "Yes." Ethan stepped out into the rain. He didn't bother with an umbrella. The walk to the front door was short, and he'd been in worse weather. As he approached the house, he took in the details with the trained eye of someone who'd evaluated hundreds of properties. The roof needed work. The gutters were clogged. The porch steps were uneven. The place was barely holding together. But there was something else too. Chalk drawings on the sidewalk, half washed away by the rain. A small garden bed near the porch, overgrown but clearly tended at some point. A handmade wreath on the front door, woven from twigs and fading fabric flowers. Someone had tried to make this place a home. Ethan climbed the steps, his shoes clicking against the worn wood. He reached the door and paused, his hand hovering over the doorbell. For a moment, just a moment, he considered turning around, but he didn't. He knocked 3 times, firm and professional, and then he waited. The door opened slowly, and Ethan found himself face to face with Naomi Carter. She was younger than he expected, early 30s, maybe. Her skin was a deep, warm brown, her hair pulled back into a simple bun. She wore jeans and a faded sweater, both clean but worn. There were dark circles under her eyes, the kind that came from too many sleepless nights, but her gaze was steady. She looked at him with a mixture of wariness and resignation, like she'd been expecting this moment but had hoped it wouldn't come. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice quiet but firm. "Mrs. Carter," Ethan said. "Yes. My name is Ethan Warren. I'm with Warren Properties. I'm here regarding the status of this property." Recognition flickered in her eyes, followed quickly by something that looked like fear, but she didn't back down. "I know who you are," Naomi said. "I've been calling your office for weeks." "I'm aware," Ethan replied. "That's why I'm here." Naomi's hand tightened on the doorframe. "I just need a little more time. I lost my job last month, but I'm looking. I have interviews lined up. I just need—" She stopped as 3 small faces appeared behind her. The oldest was a boy, maybe 10, with serious eyes and his mother's features. He stood protectively close to Naomi, one hand resting on her arm. The second was younger, 7 or 8, with a gap-toothed smile that faltered when he saw the stranger at the door. And the youngest was a little girl, no more than 5, with bright eyes and 2 puffed ponytails tied with mismatched ribbons. She peeked out from behind her mother's leg, clutching a stuffed bear that had seen better days. Ethan's carefully prepared speech died in his throat. He'd seen families before, tenants with children. It was part of the business. But something about this moment, the way the oldest boy positioned himself between his mother and a stranger, the way the youngest gripped her stuffed bear like a lifeline, made him pause. Naomi's voice broke through his thoughts. "Please, I'm not asking for charity. I just need time to get back on my feet. This is the only home my children have ever known." Ethan looked past her into the house. The living room was small and cluttered, but not messy. There were toys in a basket by the couch, a stack of library books on the coffee table, school drawings taped to the walls. The smell of something cooking soup maybe drifted from the kitchen. This wasn't just a property, it was a home. The little girl took a tentative step forward, her bear still clutched in one hand. She looked up at Ethan with wide, curious eyes. "Are you here to help my mummy?" she asked. Naomi quickly placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Zara, go back inside with your brothers." "But mummy." "Now, baby." The oldest boy gently took Zara's hand and led her away, though he kept glancing back over his shoulder. Naomi turned back to Ethan, and for the first time, he saw the exhaustion beneath her composure, the weight she was carrying. "I know I'm behind," she said quietly. "I know you have every legal right to move forward with this, but I'm asking you person to person to give me one more month. Just one. I'll catch up. I promise." Ethan opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, Zara reappeared. She darted past her mother and ran up to Ethan, thrusting a crumpled piece of paper into his hand. "This is for you," she said brightly. Naomi's eyes went wide. "Zara, what did I—" But it was too late. Ethan looked down at the paper in his hand. It was a drawing, done in crayon, a lopsided heart colored in red and pink with the words, "For Mummy," scrawled across the top in a child's handwriting. Zara smiled up at him. "Mommy says we have to be kind to everyone, so I made you a picture." Ethan stared at the drawing, something cold and hard inside him beginning to crack. Naomi scooped Zara up quickly. "I'm so sorry. She doesn't understand." "It's fine," Ethan said, his voice rougher than he intended. He looked at Naomi, then at the children peering out from behind her, then back down at the drawing in his hand. He should say what he came here to say, serve the notice, walk away. But he didn't. "I'll review your case personally," he heard himself say. Naomi blinked. "What?" "Give me a week. I'll look over everything and get back to you." I don't understand. Does that mean—" "It means I'm not making any decisions today," Ethan said. He folded the drawing carefully and slipped it into his jacket pocket. "You'll hear from me within the week." Before Naomi could respond, Ethan turned and walked back to his car. He didn't look back, but as Vernon pulled away from the curb, Ethan glanced in the side mirror and saw Naomi still standing in the doorway, her children gathered around her, watching him leave. And for the first time in years, Ethan Warren didn't know what he was going to do next. The drive back to Manhattan was silent. Ethan sat in the back seat, staring out the window as the rain streaked down the glass. His phone buzzed with emails and messages, but he ignored them. His hand went to his jacket pocket, where the folded drawing rested. He pulled it out and looked at it again. The crooked heart, the bright colors, the words written in a child's unsteady hand. "For Mummy." He thought about Naomi's face, tired but dignified. The way she'd stood between him and her children, even though she had to know she was fighting a losing battle. He thought about the oldest boy, standing protectively beside his mother, the younger one, wide-eyed and trusting, and Zara, with her bright smile and her worn stuffed bear, believing that kindness could change the world. Ethan closed his eyes and leaned back against the seat. He'd built his entire life on control, on logic, on keeping emotions locked away where they couldn't hurt him. But that little girl had handed him a drawing, and something inside him had shifted. He didn't know what it was yet. But he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't going to evict Naomi Carter. Not today. Maybe not ever. When Ethan returned to his office, Claire was waiting with a stack of new files. "How did it go?" she asked. "Fine," Ethan said, walking past her toward his desk. "Did you serve the notice?" "No." Claire paused. "No?" "I'm reviewing the case personally," Ethan said, sitting down and opening his laptop. "Hold off on any further action until I say otherwise." Claire stared at him. "Ethan, we've already extended the deadline 3 times. Legal says. I don't care what legal says. His tone was sharper than he intended. He took a breath and softened his voice. Just hold off. I'll handle it. Claire hesitated, then nodded. Okay. When she left, Ethan sat alone in his office, the drawing still on his desk. He opened Naomi's file on his computer and began to read. Naomi Elise Carter, age 32, widow, 3 children, Marcus, Jordan, and Zara. Her husband, David Carter, had died 2 years earlier in a construction accident. He'd been a union electrician, well-liked, hard-working. The accident had been ruled negligent on the part of the contractor, but the settlement had been tied up in legal battles that still weren't resolved. Naomi had been working as a bookkeeper for a small accounting firm until they downsized last year. She'd been searching for work ever since, taking odd jobs to keep food on the table and a roof over her children's heads. She'd never missed a rent payment until 6 months ago. Ethan kept reading. There were records of her volunteering at a local homeless shelter, letters of recommendation from her children's teachers, praising her involvement despite her circumstances, a commendation from the community center for organizing a winter coat drive. Ethan leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. This wasn't just a foreclosure file. This was a life, a family. He'd seen hundreds of these files over the years, maybe thousands. He'd learned early on not to look too closely, not to read beyond the numbers. Because once you saw the people behind the paperwork, once you understood their stories, it became harder to do what needed to be done. But now he couldn't unsee it. He pulled up the financial records. The house had been purchased 12 years ago by David and Naomi Carter. They'd put down 20% and had been making payments steadily until David's death. After that, the payments became irregular, sometimes late, sometimes partial. But Naomi had kept trying until she couldn't anymore. The property was worth maybe $250,000 in its current condition. With renovations, maybe $300,000. The remaining mortgage was $160,000. For Ethan's company, it was pocket change, a rounding error. But for Naomi Carter, it was everything. Ethan closed the laptop and stood, walking back to the windows overlooking the city. The rain was heavier now, turning the streets below into rivers of light reflected off wet pavement. Somewhere out there, in a small house in Brooklyn, 3 children were probably doing homework at a kitchen table while their mother tried to figure out how to keep their world from falling apart. He thought about his own childhood, before everything changed. He'd been 12 when his parents died. A car accident on a winter night, black ice on a bridge upstate. One moment his family was whole, and the next, he was alone. There had been no extended family to take him in. He'd been shuffled into the foster system, bounced between homes where he was fed and sheltered, but never really wanted, never really seen. He'd learned quickly that the only person he could count on was himself. By 16, he was working 2 jobs and saving every penny. By 18, he was out of the system and putting himself through community college. By 25, he'd made his first million in real estate. He'd built an empire on the principle that emotions were weaknesses and attachments were liabilities, and it had worked. Until today, until a 5-year-old girl with mismatched ribbons in her hair handed him a crayon drawing and looked at him like he was someone who mattered. Ethan pulled the drawing from his pocket again and stared at it. For Mummy, he thought about what the little girl Zara had said. Mummy says we have to be kind to everyone. Kindness. When was the last time someone had shown him kindness without wanting something in return? When was the last time he'd shown it to anyone else? Ethan folded the drawing carefully and placed it in his desk drawer. Then he picked up his phone and called Claire. I need you to pull all the financial records for the Brooklyn property, he said, and get me a meeting with our legal team tomorrow morning. First thing. Okay, Claire said slowly. Can I ask what you're planning? Not yet, Ethan replied. Just set it up. He hung up and stood at the window, watching the rain fall over the city. He didn't know exactly what he was going to do, but he knew he couldn't go through with the eviction. Not to that family, not to her. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He lay in his penthouse bedroom, staring at the ceiling, his mind replaying the scene at Naomi's door over and over. Her voice, trembling but steady, I just need a little more time. The way the oldest boy had positioned himself protectively beside his mother, the younger one, watching with wide, trusting eyes, and Zara, With her bright smile and her innocent belief that a picture could make everything better, Ethan rolled over and looked at the clock. 2:17 in the morning. He got out of bed and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows of his bedroom. The city sprawled out below him, millions of lights glittering in the darkness. From up here, it all looked so beautiful, so orderly. But he knew better. Down there, in those lights, were people struggling to survive. Families on the edge, children who didn't understand why their parents looked so worried all the time. He'd been one of those children once. Before he could talk himself out of it, Ethan grabbed his phone and pulled up Naomi's file again. He scrolled through the documents until he found her phone number. His thumb hovered over the call button. It was the middle of the night. He shouldn't call. It was inappropriate, unprofessional, but he pressed it anyway. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a sleepy, cautious voice answered. "Hello?" Ethan almost hung up, almost ended the call and pretended this moment of weakness had never happened. But he didn't. "Mrs. Carter, this is Ethan Warren. I'm sorry to call so late." There was a pause, and then Naomi's voice came back, more alert now. "Mr. Warren, is something wrong?" "No, nothing's wrong. I just..." He stopped, not sure how to explain why he was calling a woman he barely knew at 2 in the morning. "I wanted to let you know that I've been reviewing your case." "At 2 in the morning?" Naomi asked, a note of disbelief in her voice. Ethan almost smiled. "I don't sleep much." Another pause, then quieter. "Neither do I." Ethan walked to the window, looking out over the city. "I've gone through your records. Your payment history before your husband's death was impeccable. We always paid our bills on time," Naomi said softly. "David he was good about that, responsible." "I can see that." Ethan hesitated. "Mrs. Carter, I'm not going to evict you." He heard her sharp intake of breath. "What?" "I said I'm not going to evict you. I'm going to find another solution." I don't understand." "Why?" Ethan closed his eyes. "Because your daughter gave me a drawing today. And because I remember what it's like to lose everything and have no one show up to help." Naomi was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was thick with emotion. "Mr. Warren, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. Just give me a few days to work out the details." "Thank you," Naomi whispered. "Thank you so much." After they hung up, Ethan stood at the window for a long time, feeling something shift inside him, something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. The next morning, Ethan arrived at his office before dawn. He'd been up most of the night, running numbers, exploring options, trying to figure out how to help Naomi without completely abandoning his business principles. By the time Claire arrived at 8, he had a plan. "I need you to set up a private meeting with the board," Ethan said as soon as she walked in. "And I need our legal team to draft some paperwork." Claire set down her coffee and pulled out her tablet. "What kind of paperwork?" "A deed transfer." She looked up sharply. "For which property?" "The Brooklyn house." Claire's expression shifted from professional efficiency to genuine confusion. "You're selling it?" "No," Ethan said. "I'm giving it to her." "Giving?" Claire set down her tablet. "Ethan, I need you to run that by me again, because I don't think I heard you correctly." "You heard me." Ethan pulled up the financials on his computer screen. "The property is worth approximately $250,000. The remaining mortgage is $160,000. I'm going to pay off the mortgage and transfer the deed to Naomi Carter free and clear." Claire stared at him. "That's a $160,000 loss." "It's a $160,000 investment in doing the right thing," Ethan corrected. "The board is going to lose their minds. Let them." Ethan's voice was firm. "This is my company, my decision." Claire studied him for a long moment. "What happened yesterday?" "I met her," Ethan said simply. "I met her children, and I remembered what it's like to need help and not get it." Claire's expression softened. "Ethan, I know what you're thinking. This is emotional, impractical, bad business." He leaned back in his chair. "And you're right, but I don't care." "That's not what I was thinking," Claire said quietly. "I was thinking that I've worked for you for 6 years, and this is the first time I've seen you care about something more than profit margins." Ethan looked at her, surprised. Claire smiled slightly. "Get the paperwork drafted. I'll set up the meeting with legal." 3 days later, Ethan found himself driving back to Brooklyn. This time, the sun was shining. The rain had cleared, leaving the air crisp and clean. The leaves on the trees lining Maple Street had turned brilliant shades of gold and red. Ethan pulled up in front of number 247 and sat in the car for a moment, looking at the house. It looked different in the daylight, still worn, still in need of repairs, but somehow more alive. There were fresh chalk drawings on the sidewalk, a rainbow, a stick-figure family, a lopsided sun. The tricycle had been moved to the porch, and someone had swept the leaves from the steps. Ethan got out of the car, carrying a folder of documents. This time, when he knocked on the door, he didn't have to wait long. Naomi opened it, and her eyes widened when she saw him. "Mr. Warren." "Mrs. Carter." He held up the folder. "I told you I'd have an answer within the week." Naomi's hand went to her throat. "Please, come in." She stepped aside, and Ethan entered the house for the first time. The living room was small but cozy. A worn couch faced an old television. Bookshelves made from cinder blocks and wooden planks lined one wall, filled with children's books and a few framed photographs. The carpet was old but clean. Everything was tidy, organized, loved. The three children were sitting at the kitchen table, which Ethan could see through the doorway. The oldest boy was helping the middle one with homework. Zara was coloring, her tongue sticking out in concentration. When she saw Ethan, she jumped up and ran over, her face lighting up. "You came back," she said. "Did you like my picture?" Ethan knelt down so he was at her eye level. "I loved it. In fact, I kept it." Zara beamed. "Really? Really?" Naomi placed a gentle hand on Zara's shoulder. "Baby, why don't you go finish your coloring? Mr. Warren and I need to talk." "Okay." Zara ran back to the table, calling out to her brothers. "He liked my picture." Naomi gestured to the couch. "Please, sit down. Can I get you something? Coffee? Water?" "I'm fine, thank you." Ethan sat, and Naomi settled into the chair across from him, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She looked nervous, hopeful, scared. Ethan opened the folder and pulled out the documents. "Mrs. Carter, I've spent the last few days reviewing your situation in detail," he began, "and I've made a decision." Naomi's breath caught. "Okay, the mortgage on this property is currently $160,000. You're 6 months behind on payments, which under normal circumstances would proceed to foreclosure." Naomi nodded, her eyes glistening. "I understand. However," Ethan continued, "I don't believe these are normal circumstances." He slid the first document across the coffee table. "This is a deed transfer. As of this morning, the mortgage on this property has been paid in full. The house now belongs to you, free and clear. No more payments, no more debt." Naomi stared at the document, her mouth opening and closing without sound. I don't." She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "I don't understand. Why would you do this?" Ethan thought about all the reasons he could give, the business explanations, the tax write-offs, the charitable deductions, but none of that was true. "Because your daughter gave me a drawing and reminded me what kindness looks like," he said simply, "and because I know what it's like to lose everything and have no one care enough to help." Naomi covered her mouth with her hand, sobbing quietly. From the kitchen, the oldest boy, Marcus, appeared in the doorway. "Mom, are you okay?" Naomi looked up, tears still streaming, but she was smiling. "Yes, baby, I'm okay. We're okay." She looked back at Ethan, shaking her head in disbelief. "I don't know how to thank you. I don't know what to say. This is... You don't have to say anything," Ethan said gently. "Just take care of your family. That's enough." Naomi wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, then looked at the document again as if to make sure it was real. "Mr. Warren, this is more than anyone has ever done for us. More than I ever dreamed anyone would do. It's what should have been done a long time ago," Ethan said. Marcus stepped closer, his protective instinct still on alert. "Does this mean we get to stay?" Ethan looked at the boy, so serious, so young to be carrying the weight of trying to be the man of the house. "Yes, this is your home. No one is going to take it from you." The relief that washed over Marcus's face was immediate. His shoulders dropped, and for the first time since Ethan had met him, he looked like the 10-year-old child he was. Jordan appeared beside his brother, eyes wide. "We really get to stay?" "You really get to stay," Ethan confirmed. And then Zara was there too, squeezing between her brothers. Does that mean you're our friend now? Ethan felt something warm expand in his chest. I suppose it does. Zara grinned and ran to him, throwing her small arms around his neck in an enthusiastic hug. Ethan froze for a moment. He couldn't remember the last time anyone had hugged him. Then slowly, carefully, he wrapped his arms around the little girl and hugged her back. When Zara pulled away, she looked up at him with those bright, trusting eyes. Can you stay for dinner? Mommy makes really good soup. Zara, Naomi said quickly, wiping her eyes. Mr. Warren is a very busy man. He probably has... I'd love to, Ethan heard himself say. Naomi looked at him in surprise. Really? If you don't mind, Ethan said. I don't have any other plans. That was true. He never had plans that didn't involve work. His evenings were usually spent alone in his penthouse, reviewing reports and preparing for the next day. But right now, sitting in this small, warm living room with this family, he couldn't think of anywhere else he'd rather be. Naomi smiled, a real, genuine smile that transformed her entire face. Then you're welcome to stay. Dinner will be ready in about an hour. The next hour was unlike anything Ethan had experienced in years. Naomi insisted he make himself comfortable while she finished preparing dinner. Marcus returned to helping Jordan with math homework at the kitchen table, occasionally glancing over at Ethan as if still not quite believing this was real. Zara, however, had no such reservations. She climbed onto the couch beside Ethan with her coloring book and a box of crayons. Do you like to color? She asked, already pulling out pages. I haven't colored in a very long time, Ethan admitted. That's sad, Zara said matter-of-factly. Coloring is fun. Here, you can help me. She handed him a blue crayon and pointed to a picture of an ocean scene. You do the water. I'll do the fish. Ethan took the crayon, feeling slightly ridiculous. But Zara was looking at him so expectantly that he couldn't refuse. He began carefully coloring within the lines of the waves. You're really good at staying in the lines, Zara observed. Mommy says that's important, but sometimes I go outside them. Sometimes going outside the lines makes things more interesting, Ethan said, surprising himself. Zara giggled. You're funny. From the kitchen, Ethan could hear Naomi moving around, the sounds of pots and dishes, the warmth of a home being lived in. He could smell something savory cooking, chicken, vegetables, herbs. Marcus appeared beside him, holding a piece of paper. Mr. Warren? Ethan looked up. You can call me Ethan. Marcus hesitated, then nodded. Ethan, I just wanted to say thank you for what you did. My mom has been so worried, and I didn't know how to help her. The weight in those words, the burden this child had been carrying, made Ethan's chest tighten. You helped her by being here, Ethan said, by being a good son and a good brother. That matters more than you know. Marcus nodded, his eyes suspiciously bright. My dad used to say that family is everything, that we take care of each other no matter what. Your father was a smart man, Ethan said. I miss him, Marcus said quietly. I'm sure you do. Marcus looked at the crayon in Ethan's hand and the coloring book spread out on the couch. Is Zara making you color? She's very persuasive, Ethan said with a slight smile. Marcus almost smiled back. Yeah, she is. Marcus, honey, can you set the table? Naomi called from the kitchen. Yes, ma'am. Marcus headed toward the kitchen, then paused and looked back at Ethan. I'm glad you came back. Me too, Ethan said, and he meant it. Dinner was served family style at the small kitchen table. Naomi had somehow made room for 5, squeezing in an extra chair and setting out mismatched plates and bowls. The meal was simple chicken soup with vegetables, fresh bread that Naomi said she'd made that morning, and a small salad. It was the best meal Ethan had eaten in months. Not because it was fancy or expensive, but because it was made with care and shared with warmth. The children talked over each other, telling stories about school and friends and a field trip they were excited about. Naomi gently redirected them when they got too loud, reminding them to use their manners because they had a guest. But Ethan didn't feel like a guest. He felt like he belonged. It was a strange, unfamiliar feeling, one he hadn't experienced since he was a child himself, sitting at a table with his own parents, before everything fell apart. So, Ethan, Naomi said, ladling more soup into his bowl even though he insisted he was full, what made you decide to go into real estate? Ethan considered the question. The real answer was complicated, rooted in survival and the need to prove himself. but he found himself wanting to give her an honest answer. "When I was younger, I didn't have a stable home," he began. "I moved around a lot, and I realized that having a place that's yours, a place where you feel safe, is one of the most important things in the world." Naomi studied him with those perceptive eyes. "So you wanted to give that to other people?" "Something like that," Ethan said, "though I lost sight of that purpose somewhere along the way." "And now?" Naomi asked gently. Ethan looked around the table at Marcus carefully buttering his bread, at Jordan slurping his soup with enthusiasm, at Zara chattering about her favorite color. "Now I'm trying to remember why I started," he said. Naomi smiled. "I think that's a good place to be." After dinner, the children insisted on showing Ethan their rooms. Marcus's room was small but organized, with posters of basketball players on the walls and a bookshelf full of adventure novels. Jordan's room was a cheerful mess of toy cars and action figures, and Zara's room was an explosion of pink and purple, with stuffed animals covering every surface. "This is Mr. Bear," Zara said, holding up the worn teddy bear Ethan had seen on his first visit. "He's been with me since I was a baby. Daddy gave him to me." "He looks very special," Ethan said. "He is," Zara said seriously. "He helps me not be scared at night." Ethan knelt down beside her. "What are you scared of?" Zara looked down, her small fingers fidgeting with Mr. Bear's ear. "Sometimes I have bad dreams about Daddy, and sometimes I worry that Mommy will go away too." The honesty of it, the vulnerability, struck Ethan deep in his chest. "Your Mommy loves you very much," Ethan said gently, "and she's not going anywhere." "Promise?" Zara asked, looking up at him with those wide, trusting eyes. Ethan knew he shouldn't make promises he couldn't guarantee. But looking at this little girl who'd already lost so much, he found himself saying, "I promise. And if your Mummy ever needs help, I'll be here." Zara threw her arms around his neck again. "Thank you, Ethan." By the time Ethan left that evening, it was nearly 9 o'clock. Naomi walked him to the door, her expression still a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. "Thank you again," she said. "Not just for the house, but for staying, for spending time with the kids. They really needed this." "So did I," Ethan admitted. Naomi tilted her head, studying him. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone colder, more distant," she smiled softly. "Someone who wouldn't color with my 5-year-old daughter." Ethan almost smiled. "She's very persistent." "She likes you," Naomi said. "They all do." "I like them too," Ethan said, and he was surprised by how true it was. He stepped out onto the porch, then turned back. "Mrs. Carter." "Naomi," she corrected. "Please." "Naomi," Ethan said. "If you need anything repairs on the house, help finding work, anything, I want you to call me." He handed her a business card with his personal cell phone number written on the back. Naomi took it, her fingers brushing his for just a moment. "Why are you doing all this?" Ethan thought about all the years he'd spent building walls, keeping people at a distance, convincing himself that he didn't need anyone. And he thought about how it had felt tonight, sitting at a table with people who actually wanted him there. "Because I forgot what it feels like to be part of something real," he said quietly. "And you reminded me." Naomi's eyes glistened. "Well, you're welcome here anytime. Our door is always open to you." Ethan nodded, not trusting himself to speak. As he walked to his car, he heard Zara's voice calling from an upstairs window. "Bye, Ethan. Come back soon." He looked up and waved, and she waved back enthusiastically, Mr. Bear's paw waving too. Ethan got in his car and sat there for a moment, looking at the house. The lights were warm in the windows. He could see shadows moving inside Naomi, helping the kids get ready for bed, the ordinary rituals of a family's evening. He'd given them their home back. But they'd given him something too, something he hadn't even known he'd lost, a reason to care. The days following that dinner became a pattern Ethan hadn't planned for. He told himself he was just checking in, making sure the house was in order, ensuring that Naomi and the children were settling in without the weight of foreclosure hanging over them. But the truth was simpler and more complicated than that. He wanted to be there. The first time he returned, it was under the pretense of having a contractor evaluate the house for necessary repairs. Ethan showed up on a Saturday morning with a notebook and a man named Joe, who'd been doing renovation work for Warren Properties for years. Naomi answered the door in jeans and an old Howard University sweatshirt, her hair wrapped in a colorful scarf. She looked surprised but pleased. "Ethan," she said, "I wasn't expecting you." "I should have called," Ethan said. "This is Joe Martinez. He's a contractor. I thought it might be good to do a walkthrough, see what repairs the house needs." Naomi's expression shifted from pleased to concerned. "Oh, I can't really afford." "It's covered," Ethan said quickly. "Consider it part of the transfer. The house should be in good condition." Naomi looked like she wanted to protest, but Zara came barreling around the corner, saw Ethan, and shrieked with delight. "Ethan, you came back!" She launched herself at him, and he caught her instinctively, lifting her up. "I promised I would, didn't I?" he said. "Are you staying for lunch?" Zara asked hopefully. "Mommy's making grilled cheese." Ethan looked at Naomi, who was watching the interaction with a soft expression. "You're welcome to stay," she said. "It's nothing fancy, but we'd love to have you." "I'd like that," Ethan said. The inspection took about 2 hours. Joe walked through every room, making notes on his tablet: a leaking pipe under the kitchen sink, outdated electrical outlets, a crack in the foundation that needed sealing, shingles on the roof that should be replaced before winter. Ethan followed along, watching Naomi's expression grow more anxious with each item added to the list. When they finished, Joe gave Ethan a rough estimate, looking at about $15,000 to get everything up to code and properly maintained, maybe $20,000 if you want to upgrade some of the systems. Naomi's face went pale. $20,000? "I'll take care of it," Ethan said immediately. "Ethan, no," Naomi protested. "You've already done so much. I can't ask you to." "You're not asking, I'm offering." He turned to Joe. "Can you start next week?" Joe nodded. "I'll put together a crew and a timeline." After Joe left, Naomi stood in the living room with her arms crossed, looking torn between gratitude and frustration. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. It was the same question she'd asked before, but this time there was something more in it. A need to understand what motivated this stranger who'd walked into her life and started fixing things. Ethan sat down on the couch, and after a moment, Naomi sat in the chair across from him. "When I was 16, Ethan began, "I was living in my 4th foster home in 3 years. The house was falling apart. There was mold in the bathroom, the heat barely worked, and the roof leaked when it rained. But the family was getting a check every month to take care of me, and they weren't spending it on maintenance." Naomi listened quietly. "I tried to fix things myself," Ethan continued. "I taught myself basic plumbing from library books. I patched the roof with materials I bought with money from my part-time job, but it was never enough, and no one cared enough to actually help." He looked up at Naomi. "I don't want your children to grow up in a house that's falling apart while someone who could help just walks away," he said. "I have the resources to make sure this house is safe and solid, so that's what I'm going to do." Naomi's eyes were bright with emotion. "You're a good man, Ethan Warren." "I'm trying to be," Ethan said quietly. The moment was interrupted by Marcus appearing in the doorway. "Mom, Jordan spilled juice all over the kitchen floor," he announced. Naomi sighed and stood. "Of course he did." She looked at Ethan with an apologetic smile. "Welcome to the chaos." Ethan found himself smiling back. "I don't mind chaos." Over the next few weeks, the house transformed. Joe's crew arrived early and worked efficiently, replacing pipes, updating electrical systems, patching the foundation, and putting on a new roof. They repainted the exterior in a fresh, warm gray with white trim. They fixed the sagging porch and replaced the broken steps. Ethan found reasons to stop by several times a week, ostensibly to check on the progress. But really, he came to see them. He came to watch Zara's face light up when she saw him, to hear Jordan's excited stories about school, to see the way Marcus was slowly starting to relax, the protective walls coming down as he realized his family was finally stable. And he came to see Naomi. She was different from anyone Ethan had ever known. She didn't want anything from him beyond his company. She didn't treat him like a wealthy benefactor or a business connection. She treated him like a person, like a friend. They fell into an easy rhythm. Ethan would arrive in the evening after work, usually with takeout or groceries. Naomi would insist he stay for dinner. The children would monopolize his attention, Zara showing him her latest drawings, Jordan challenging him to board games, Marcus asking him questions about business and real estate. And after the children went to bed, Ethan and Naomi would sit on the newly repaired porch with cups of tea, talking about everything and nothing. It was during one of these conversations, 3 weeks after the repairs had begun, that Naomi asked the question Ethan had been dreading. Why don't you have a family of your own? They were sitting in the porch swing Ethan had installed the week before. The evening was cool, autumn settling in with crisp air and the smell of wood smoke from a neighbor's fireplace. Ethan took a sip of his tea, buying time. I've never really thought about it. That's not true, Naomi said gently. You're too smart to have never thought about it. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I never wanted to need anyone. After my parents died, after the foster homes, I built my whole life around being self-sufficient. Needing people felt dangerous. And now? Naomi asked. Ethan looked at her, really looked at her, the way the porch light caught the gold in her brown eyes, the small smile on her lips, the patience in her expression. Now I'm starting to think I was wrong, he admitted. Naomi's smile widened. That must be hard for someone like you to admit. Impossible, Ethan said with a slight smile of his own. Don't tell anyone. Naomi laughed, a sound that had become one of Ethan's favorite things. Your secret's safe with me, she said. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the swing moving gently back and forth. Can I ask you something? Ethan said. Of course. How do you do it? He asked. Stay so positive, so strong, after everything you've been through. Naomi was quiet for a moment, considering. I don't always feel strong. Some days I barely hold it together, but I have 3 children who need me to get up every morning and keep going. So I do. That's not just strength, Ethan said. That's courage. Maybe, Naomi said. Or maybe it's just love. When you love someone enough, you find a way to keep going, even when everything else falls apart. Ethan thought about that. He'd spent so many years avoiding love, seeing it as a weakness. But watching Naomi with her children, seeing the way that love gave her strength instead of taking it away, he was beginning to understand that he'd been wrong about that too. David was lucky to have you, Ethan said. Naomi's expression softened with sadness and warmth. I was lucky to have him too. He was a good man, a good father. She paused. The kids miss him every day, especially Marcus. He's trying so hard to be the man of the house, to take care of everyone. I wish I could take that burden off him. He's doing it because he loves you, Ethan said, and because his father taught him well. I know, Naomi said, but he's still just a boy. He should be worrying about basketball and video games, not whether we're going to lose our home. He doesn't have to worry about that anymore, Ethan said. Naomi looked at him, her eyes glistening. Because of you. Because someone should have been there to help a long time ago, Ethan corrected. Naomi reached over and took his hand. It was a simple gesture, but it sent warmth through Ethan's entire body. You're here now, she said. That's what matters. The following week, Naomi got a job. Ethan had quietly reached out to a few connections, and a mid-sized accounting firm in Brooklyn was looking for an experienced bookkeeper. He'd mentioned Naomi's name, provided a reference based on her previous work history, and she'd gotten an interview. When she called to tell him she'd gotten the position, he could hear the joy and relief in her voice. I start Monday, she said, full-time, with benefits. Ethan, I can't believe it. I've been applying everywhere for months, and nothing. And now, you earned it, Ethan said. They're lucky to have you. Did you have anything to do with this? Naomi asked, her tone suspicious. I may have made a phone call, Ethan admitted, but they wouldn't have hired you if you weren't qualified. I just opened the door. You walked through it. Thank you, Naomi said softly, for everything. That Saturday, Naomi insisted on cooking Ethan a thank you dinner. When he arrived, the house smelled incredible roasted chicken, seasoned vegetables, fresh baked rolls. The table was set with care, and the children were dressed in their nicest clothes. What's all this? Ethan asked. A celebration, Naomi said, wearing a dress Ethan had never seen before, simple and navy blue, but it made her look radiant. We wanted to thank you properly. Dinner was filled with laughter and stories. Zara insisted on sitting next to Ethan and kept sneaking him extra rolls when she thought no one was looking. Jordan told elaborate stories about his day at school, complete with dramatic gestures. Marcus was quieter, but smiled more than Ethan had ever seen. After dinner, Marcus cleared his throat. Ethan, can I talk to you for a minute? He asked. Of course, Ethan said. They stepped out onto the porch, leaving Naomi and the younger children cleaning up inside. Marcus looked nervous, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. "What's on your mind?" Ethan asked. "I just wanted to say thank you," Marcus began. "Not just for the house and the job for my mom, but for being here, for showing up." Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. "My dad used to say that real strength isn't about being tough all the time," Marcus continued. "It's about showing up for the people you care about, even when it's hard." "Your father was right," Ethan said. "You show up," Marcus said, looking up at Ethan with eyes that were older than his years. "Even though you don't have to, even though we're not your family, you show up anyway." Ethan knelt down so he was eye level with the boy. "Marcus, you and your mother and your brother and sister, you've become very important to me. Showing up isn't hard. It's the easiest thing I do." Marcus's eyes filled with tears he was trying hard to hold back. "I miss my dad so much." "I know you do," Ethan said gently. "But I'm glad you're here," Marcus said. "I'm glad we have you." Ethan pulled the boy into a hug, and Marcus held on tight. When they pulled apart, Marcus wiped his eyes quickly. "Don't tell my mom," I cried. "Your secret's safe with me," Ethan said, echoing the words Naomi had said to him weeks before. Marcus smiled and headed back inside. Ethan stood on the porch for a moment, overwhelmed by the intensity of what he was feeling. These children, this family, they'd become his family too. And that realization was both terrifying and wonderful. November arrived with cold winds and early darkness. The repairs on the house were complete, and it looked better than it had in years. Ethan had also quietly paid for the heating system to be serviced and upgraded, ensuring the family would be warm through the winter. He'd started spending more evenings at the house than at his own penthouse. His assistant had noticed but hadn't commented, though Claire gave him knowing looks whenever he left the office early. One evening, Ethan arrived to find Naomi in the kitchen, visibly upset. The children were in the living room watching television, but the tension in Naomi's shoulders was obvious. "What's wrong?" Ethan asked immediately. Naomi wiped her eyes quickly. "It's nothing, just a rough day." "Naomi," she sighed and leaned against the counter. "I got a call from David's attorney today. The settlement from the construction company is finally being released." "That's good news, isn't it?" Ethan asked. "It should be," Naomi said. "But it's only $30,000. After legal fees and taxes, it'll be maybe 20. For 2 years of waiting, for my children losing their father." Her voice broke on the last word. Ethan crossed the kitchen and pulled her into his arms without thinking. Naomi resisted for only a moment before she let herself lean into him, her tears soaking into his shirt. "It's not enough," she whispered. "No amount of money would be enough, but this feels like an insult, like his life didn't matter." "His life mattered," Ethan said firmly. "It mattered to you. It matters to your children, and it matters to everyone who knew him." Naomi pulled back slightly, looking up at him. "How do you always know the right thing to say?" "I don't," Ethan admitted. "But I know what it's like to feel like no one cares, and I need you to know that I care. About you, about your children, about all of this." Naomi's expression shifted into something Ethan couldn't quite read, something warm and searching. "Ethan," she said softly, "what are we doing?" "What do you mean?" "This," Naomi gestured between them. "You coming here almost every day. Dinners and conversations, and I need to know what this is to you. Because to me, it's starting to feel like more than just friendship." Ethan's heart pounded. He'd been avoiding this conversation, this acknowledgement of what was growing between them. "It is more," he said finally. "At least, it is for me." Naomi's breath caught. "Ethan, I know the timing is complicated," Ethan said quickly. "I know you're still grieving David, and I know I have no right to." Naomi placed her hand on his chest, stopping him. "David has been gone for 2 years, and I will always love him. He was my husband, the father of my children, but I'm also still alive, and I'm allowed to feel things for someone new." "Do you?" Ethan asked. "Feel things for me?" Naomi smiled, even through her tears. "Yes, I do. You're kind and generous and so good with my children. You make me laugh, you make me feel safe, and you've shown up for us in ways I never expected anyone to again." "But," Ethan prompted, hearing the hesitation in her voice. "But I'm scared," Naomi admitted. "I'm scared of getting hurt again. I'm scared of my children getting attached to someone who might leave. I'm scared that this is too good to be true." Ethan took both of her hands in his. I'm scared too. I've spent my entire adult life avoiding exactly this, caring about people, letting them matter to me. Because every time I've cared about someone, I've lost them." He paused, gathering his courage. "But being here with you and your children, it's the first time in 15 years that I've felt like I'm home," Ethan continued. "And I don't want to walk away from that. I don't want to walk away from you." Naomi's eyes searched his face. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I'm falling for you, Naomi Carter," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the vulnerability of the words. "I'm falling for your strength and your grace and the way you love your children. I'm falling for the way you make me want to be better than I am." A tear slipped down Naomi's cheek. "I'm falling for you too." The admission hung between them, fragile and precious. Ethan reached up and gently wiped away her tear with his thumb. "Then maybe we can be scared together." Naomi laughed softly. "That's the most romantic thing anyone has ever said to me." "I'm out of practice," Ethan admitted with a slight smile. "You're doing just fine," Naomi said. They stood there in the kitchen, the sounds of the television drifting in from the living room, and something fundamental shifted between them. This wasn't just friendship anymore. This was the beginning of something more. The next few weeks were a careful dance of navigating new territory. Ethan and Naomi didn't rush. They both understood the weight of what they were building, not just a relationship between two people, but a connection that involved 3 children who'd already lost so much. Ethan continued coming to dinner several times a week, but now there were small changes. The way Naomi would touch his arm when she laughed, the way Ethan would help her clean up after dinner, their hands brushing as they washed dishes side by side, the way they'd sit closer on the porch swing, their shoulders touching. The children noticed. One evening, after Ethan had read Zara her bedtime story and was heading downstairs, he found Marcus waiting in the hallway. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus said. "Always," Ethan replied. "Are you and my mom dating?" Ethan had been expecting this question, but it still caught him off guard. He sat down on the top step, and Marcus joined him. "Would that bother you if we were?" Ethan asked carefully. Marcus was quiet for a moment, his fingers tracing patterns on the carpet. "I don't know. Maybe. It feels weird thinking about Mom with someone who's not Dad." "That's completely understandable," Ethan said. "Your father will always be your father. Nothing and no one can change that." "But you're here now," Marcus said, "and Dad isn't." "I know this is complicated," Ethan said, "and I know I can never replace your father. I wouldn't try to, but I care about your mother very much, and I care about you and Jordan and Zara." Marcus looked up at him. "Do you love her?" The directness of the question took Ethan's breath away, but he'd promised himself he would always be honest with these children. "Yes," he said, "I do." Marcus nodded slowly, processing this. "Does she love you?" "You'd have to ask her," Ethan said, "but I think so." "Are you going to marry her?" Ethan's heart raced. He hadn't thought that far ahead, or rather, he had, but he hadn't let himself fully consider it. "I don't know," Ethan said honestly, "but if I did, I would want to make sure you and your siblings were okay with it first. This isn't just about your mother and me, it's about all of us." Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "You make Mom happy. I haven't seen her smile this much since Dad died." "She makes me happy too," Ethan said. "And you're good to us," Marcus continued. "You help with homework and you play games with Jordan even when he cheats, and you read to Zara even though she makes you read the same book 100 times. Ethan smiled. "I don't mind." "I know," Marcus said. He took a deep breath. "I think it would be okay. If you and Mom got married someday, I think Dad would want Mom to be happy, and you make her happy." Ethan felt his throat tighten with emotion. "Thank you, Marcus. That means more to me than you know." Marcus stood up. "Just don't hurt her, okay? Because if you do, I'll be really mad." Despite the seriousness of the moment, Ethan almost smiled at the protective fierceness in the boy's voice. "I promise," Ethan said. "I will never intentionally hurt your mother." Marcus nodded, satisfied, and headed toward his room. Then he paused and looked back. "Ethan, yeah? I'm glad you came to our house that day. Even though it was supposed to be a bad thing, it turned out good." "I'm glad too," Ethan said. After Marcus went to bed, Ethan found Naomi in the kitchen, putting away the last of the dishes. "Marcus asked me if we were dating," Ethan said. Naomi turned, her expression anxious. What did you tell him? I told him the truth, that I care about you very much. Ethan crossed the kitchen. And that I love you. Naomi's eyes widened. You told him that? He asked me directly, Ethan said, and I couldn't lie to him. What did he say? He said he thinks it would be okay, that his father would want you to be happy. Naomi's hand went to her mouth, tears filling her eyes. He said that? Ethan nodded. He's a remarkable kid. They all are. Naomi moved into Ethan's arms, and he held her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, something floral and sweet. I love you too, Naomi whispered against his chest. I've been trying not to fall in love with you, but I couldn't help it. Ethan pulled back just enough to see her face. Why were you trying not to? Because it felt too fast, too soon, too good to be real. Naomi looked up at him. But you kept showing up. You kept being kind and patient and wonderful. And I realized that sometimes good things do happen, even when you think you don't deserve them. You deserve every good thing, Ethan said firmly. You deserve to be loved and cherished and to feel safe. So do you, Naomi said. Ethan leaned down slowly, giving Naomi time to pull away if she wanted to, but she didn't. Instead, she rose on her toes and met him halfway. Their first kiss was gentle and tentative, a question and an answer all at once. When they pulled apart, both of them were smiling. I've wanted to do that for weeks, Ethan admitted. Me too, Naomi said. They stood in the kitchen, holding each other, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, Ethan felt completely at peace. The weeks leading up to Christmas were filled with a joy Ethan had never experienced. He helped Naomi and the children decorate the house, stringing lights along the porch and hanging a wreath on the door. He went Christmas shopping with Naomi, helping her pick out gifts for the children and laughing when she insisted on buying him a ridiculous holiday sweater. He attended Marcus's basketball game and cheered louder than anyone when the boy scored. He helped Jordan build an elaborate Lego set that took 3 evenings to complete. He let Zara paint his nails bright purple and wore the polish to a business meeting the next day, much to Claire's amusement. You're different, Claire observed one afternoon as they reviewed quarterly reports. Different how? Ethan asked, though he knew exactly what she meant. Happier, Claire said simply. Lighter. Like you've finally figured out what you've been working so hard for all these years. Ethan thought about Naomi's smile, about the sound of the children's laughter, about the feeling of coming home to people who were genuinely happy to see him. I think I have, he said. On Christmas Eve, Ethan was invited to spend the evening with Naomi and the children. They had dinner together, a feast Naomi had been preparing for days. Afterward, they gathered in the living room around the tree Ethan had helped them pick out and decorate. The children opened one gift each, as was their family tradition. Marcus got a new basketball, Jordan got a remote-control car, and Zara got a beautiful new doll she'd been asking for. Then Zara handed Ethan a badly wrapped package. This is for you, she said. We all made it. Ethan carefully unwrapped the gift to find a framed picture. It was a drawing done in the same crayon style as the heart Zara had given him months ago, but this one showed 5 stick figures standing in front of a house. Each figure was labeled Mom, Marcus, Jordan, Zara, and Ethan. It's our family, Zara explained. With you in it. Ethan stared at the picture, his vision blurring. Do you like it? Jordan asked anxiously. I love it, Ethan managed to say. It's the best gift I've ever received, and he meant it. Later that evening, after the children had gone to bed, Ethan and Naomi sat on the porch despite the cold, wrapped in blankets and watching the Christmas lights twinkle on houses up and down the street. This has been the best Christmas I've had in years, Naomi said softly. The children are so happy. I'm so happy. So am I, Ethan said. Naomi turned to look at him. A year ago, if someone had told me that the man who came to evict me would become the man I fell in love with, I would have thought they were crazy. Life is strange that way, Ethan said. Strange and wonderful, Naomi agreed. Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Naomi's eyes widened. Ethan, it's not what you think, Ethan said quickly, though his heart was pounding. Not yet, anyway. I know we need more time. But I wanted to give you something to show you how serious I am about this. About us. He opened the box to reveal a delicate necklace with a small pendant, a simple heart made of silver. It's beautiful, Naomi breathed. May I? Ethan asked. Naomi turned, lifting her hair, and Ethan fastened the necklace around her neck. When she turned back, her hand went to the pendant. "Thank you," she said, "for this, for everything. Thank you for letting me into your life," Ethan said, "for giving me a family when I thought I'd never have one." Naomi leaned in and kissed him, soft and sweet. When they pulled apart, she rested her head on his shoulder, and they sat together in the quiet of Christmas Eve, watching the lights and dreaming of the future. New Year's came and went, and with it came a certainty Ethan hadn't felt before. He wanted to marry Naomi. He wanted to be a father to Marcus, Jordan, and Zara. He wanted to build a life with this family that had changed everything for him, but he also knew he needed to do this right. One Saturday in mid-January, while Naomi was at work, Ethan took all 3 children out for lunch. They went to a diner the kids loved, ordered burgers and milkshakes, and talked about school and friends and their favorite movies. And then, when the food was finished and they were working on their shakes, Ethan took a deep breath. "I need to talk to you guys about something important," he said. 3 pairs of eyes fixed on him with varying degrees of curiosity. "Am I in trouble?" Jordan asked. "No," Ethan said with a smile. "Nobody's in trouble. But I have a question I need to ask all of you." "What kind of question?" Marcus asked. Ethan set down his coffee and looked at each of them in turn. "You know that I love your mother very much," he began. Zara giggled. "You kiss her sometimes. I saw you." Ethan felt his cheeks heat. "Well, yes, and I also love the 3 of you very much." "We love you too," Zara said matter-of-factly. "Thank you, sweetheart." Ethan smiled at her, then turned serious. "I want to ask your mother to marry me, but before I do that, I need to know if that's okay with you." The table went quiet. Marcus looked down at his milkshake, his expression thoughtful. Jordan's eyes went wide, and Zara bounced in her seat. "Does that mean you'd be our dad?" she asked. "Not your dad," Ethan said carefully. "You have a dad, and he'll always be your dad, but I would be your stepdad. I would live with you and take care of you and be there for you, just like I've been doing." "Would we have to call you Dad?" Marcus asked quietly. "You can call me whatever you're comfortable with," Ethan said. "Ethan, or Dad, or anything else. That's completely up to you." Marcus nodded slowly. "What if I'm not ready to call you Dad yet?" "Then you don't have to," Ethan said gently. "There's no pressure. This is about all of us being a family, however that looks." "I want to call you Dad," Zara announced. "Can I?" Ethan felt his throat tighten. "If that's what you want, then yes." "Me too," Jordan said. "I think it would be cool to have a dad again." All eyes turned to Marcus. The oldest boy was quiet for a long moment, his fingers drumming on the table. Then he looked up at Ethan. "If you marry Mom, will you promise to always be there, even when things get hard?" "I promise," Ethan said without hesitation. "And you won't leave?" "Like Dad did." The pain in that question broke Ethan's heart. "Your father didn't choose to leave you," Ethan said gently. "He was taken from you by an accident. But I promise you, Marcus, I will do everything in my power to be here for you, for your siblings, and for your mother, for as long as you'll have me." Marcus studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, you can marry Mom." Ethan let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "Thank you. All of you. This means everything to me." "When are you going to ask her?" Jordan wanted to know. "Soon," Ethan said, "but it's a surprise, so you can't tell her. Can you keep a secret?" All 3 children nodded enthusiastically. "Good," Ethan said, "because I'm going to need your help to make this perfect. If this story is moving you, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next, because the ending is going to be beautiful." Ethan had orchestrated billion-dollar deals, negotiated with hardened businessmen, and faced down entire boards of directors without breaking a sweat. But planning a marriage proposal was somehow more terrifying than all of that combined. He wanted it to be perfect. Not grand or extravagant. Naomi wasn't the type to want a public spectacle or an over-the-top gesture, but it needed to be meaningful, personal, something that honored who they were and how far they'd come. The children became his eager co-conspirators. Marcus helped him pick out the ring, accompanying Ethan to 3 different jewelers before they found the perfect one, a simple solitaire diamond on a delicate gold band, elegant and understated, just like Naomi herself. Jordan drew elaborate plans for how the proposal should unfold, complete with detailed diagrams that involved rose petals, candles, and somehow a mariachi band. Ethan gently steered him towards something simpler, and Zara insisted on making decorations, producing an endless supply of paper hearts and flowers that Ethan dutifully collected and promised to use. "It has to be romantic," Zara said seriously, sitting at the kitchen table with her crayons and construction paper. "Like in the movies." "What happens in the movies?" Ethan asked, sitting beside her. "The prince tells the princess she's beautiful and that he loves her forever and ever," Zara explained. "And then they get married and live happily ever after." "That sounds like a good plan," Ethan said. "And there's always music," Jordan added from across the table. "And dancing. And you have to get down on one knee," Marcus said, looking up from his homework. "That's important." Ethan smiled at the three of them, his heart full. "I'll remember all of that." "When are you going to do it?" Jordan asked. "Valentine's Day," Ethan said. "I thought it would be appropriate." "That's so romantic," Zara squealed. "But that's 3 weeks away," Jordan complained. "That's forever." "It'll go by fast," Ethan assured him. "And we need time to prepare everything." What he didn't tell them was that he was also using that time to prepare something else, something bigger. Over the next 3 weeks, Ethan moved forward with a plan that went beyond just the proposal. He met with lawyers to begin adoption proceedings. If Naomi said yes, if they got married, he wanted to formally adopt Marcus, Jordan, and Zara. He wanted them to be his children in every legal sense, not just in his heart. He also started looking at properties, larger homes in better neighborhoods, places with good schools and safe streets and yards big enough for the children to play. The house on Maple Street would always be special, the place where everything changed. But he wanted to give this family even more, a fresh start in a home they could all choose together. But he kept all of this to himself for now. First, he needed to ask Naomi to marry him. Everything else would follow. The children managed to keep the secret, though it clearly took considerable effort on their part. Ethan caught Zara starting to say something several times, only to clamp her hand over her mouth and run away giggling. Jordan developed a habit of whispering with Marcus whenever Naomi was nearby. And Marcus watched Ethan with a knowing expression that made it clear he understood the weight of what was about to happen. Naomi noticed the strange behavior but attributed it to typical childhood antics. "I don't know what's gotten into them," she said one evening as she and Ethan sat on the porch. "They're acting so secretive." "Kids are weird," Ethan said, trying to keep his expression neutral. Naomi laughed. "That's true." She leaned against him, and he wrapped his arm around her shoulders. "Can I tell you something?" "Always." "A year ago, I was so scared," Naomi said quietly. "I was terrified of losing this house, of not being able to provide for my children, of failing them. And now," she gestured around them, "now I have a job I love, a home that's secure, and someone I care about who cares about me and my children." "You did that," Ethan said. "You kept fighting, kept pushing forward. I just helped along the way." "You did more than help," Naomi said. "You changed everything." Ethan kissed the top of her head. "You changed everything for me too." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the winter evening settle over the neighborhood. "Ethan," Naomi said after a while. "Yeah? Where do you see this going? Us, I mean." Ethan's heart rate picked up. "Where do you want it to go?" Naomi was quiet for a moment. "I want you in my life, in our lives. I want to wake up next to you and build a future together and watch my children grow up with you there." She paused. "Is that too much?" "No," Ethan said firmly. "It's not too much. It's everything I want too." "Yeah?" "Yeah." Naomi smiled and snuggled closer. "Good." Ethan held her, his mind on the ring hidden in his dresser drawer and the plan that was slowly coming together. Just a little longer, he told himself. Just a few more days. Valentine's Day fell on a Saturday. Ethan had arranged everything meticulously. He'd asked Naomi's sister, who lived 2 hours away, to take the children for the evening, framing it as a special aunt and nieces and nephews bonding night. Naomi had been surprised but pleased, thinking it was sweet that Ethan had arranged a date night for just the two of them. She had no idea what was really coming. That morning, while Naomi was getting the children ready for their trip to her sister's place, Ethan arrived early with coffee and bagels. "You're here early," Naomi said, opening the door with a smile. She was in yoga pants and an oversized sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, and Ethan thought she'd never looked more beautiful. "Wanted to see you before the kids left," Ethan said, stepping inside. The children were in various states of readiness. Marcus was packed and sitting on the couch, reading. Jordan was running around looking for his other shoe. And Zara was insisting that Mr. Bear needed his own suitcase. "Zara, Mr. Bear can fit in your bag," Naomi said patiently. "But what if he gets squished?" Zara protested. "He's a very resilient bear," Ethan said, kneeling down. "I'm sure he'll be fine sharing your bag." Zara considered this, then nodded. "Okay, but only because you said so." When Naomi went upstairs to get something, all three children gathered around Ethan. "Is tonight the night?" Jordan whispered. "Tonight's the night," Ethan confirmed. "Are you nervous?" Marcus asked. "Terrified," Ethan admitted. "She's going to say yes," Zara said confidently. "She loves you." "I hope you're right, sweetheart," Ethan said. An hour later, Naomi's sister arrived to pick up the children. There were hugs and kisses all around, and then the kids were gone, leaving Ethan and Naomi alone in the suddenly quiet house. "Well," Naomi said, closing the door, "what should we do with a whole evening to ourselves?" "Actually," Ethan said, "I made reservations at that Italian place you've been wanting to try, for 7 o'clock. Naomi's face lit up. "Really? Really? I thought we could have a nice dinner, just the two of us." "That sounds perfect," Naomi said. "Let me go get ready." She headed upstairs, and Ethan took a moment to breathe. This was it. Tonight, he would ask Naomi Carter to marry him, and his entire future hung on her answer. The restaurant was intimate and romantic, with dim lighting, candles on every table, and soft Italian music playing in the background. Naomi looked stunning in a deep red dress Ethan had never seen before. Her hair was down in soft curls, and she wore the necklace he'd given her at Christmas. "You look incredible," Ethan said as they were seated. "You clean up pretty well yourself," Naomi said with a smile, taking in his dark suit and tie. They ordered wine and appetizers, falling into easy conversation. They talked about work, about the children, about a vacation they'd been thinking about taking in the summer. Every moment felt precious, weighted with the knowledge of what was coming. After dinner, as they shared a dessert of tiramisu, Naomi reached across the table and took Ethan's hand. "This has been perfect," she said. "Thank you." "It's not over yet," Ethan said. "No? No. I have one more surprise." He paid the check, and they walked out into the cool February evening. His car was waiting, but instead of getting in, Ethan said, "Do you mind if we take a walk first?" "In these heels?" Naomi asked, but she was smiling. "Just a short one, I promise." They walked hand in hand down the street, past shops with heart-shaped decorations in their windows and couples strolling together. The air was crisp but not unbearably cold, and the city lights reflected off the few patches of snow that remained. Ethan led Naomi to a small park nearby, one with paths lit by old-fashioned lampposts and benches overlooking a pond. "I used to come here sometimes," Ethan said as they walked. "When I first started my company and everything felt overwhelming, I'd sit on one of these benches and try to figure out what I was doing with my life." "And did you ever figure it out?" Naomi asked. "No," Ethan said. "Not until I met you." They stopped at a bench overlooking the pond, where the moonlight reflected off the still water. "Naomi, can we sit for a minute?" Ethan asked. "Of course." They sat down, and Ethan turned to face her, still holding her hand. "A year ago," he began, "I came to your house to evict you. It was supposed to be a simple business transaction. Clear the property, move on to the next deal. That's what I always did." Naomi listened quietly, her eyes locked on his face. "But then you opened the door," Ethan continued, "and I saw you and your children, and something shifted. Zara handed me that drawing, and it was like a crack appeared in all the walls I'd built around myself." He paused, gathering his courage. "You and your children reminded me what it means to be human, what it means to love and be loved. You showed me that the things I'd been chasing, money, success, power, none of it mattered compared to having a family, having a home." Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out the small velvet box. Naomi's eyes widened, her free hand going to her mouth. "Naomi Carter," Ethan said, opening the box to reveal the ring. "You have given me everything I didn't know I was missing. You've made me believe in second chances and new beginnings, and I don't want to spend another day without you." He slid off the bench and onto one knee. Naomi's eyes filled with tears. "Will you marry me?" Ethan asked. Will you let me spend the rest of my life loving you and being a father to your children and building a family with you?" For a moment, Naomi couldn't speak. She just stared at him, tears streaming down her face. Then she nodded. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. Ethan's hands shook slightly as he slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Naomi pulled him up and kissed him, her arms wrapping around his neck. When they finally broke apart, they were both laughing and crying at the same time. "I love you so much," Naomi said. "I was so scared to let myself fall for you, but you made it impossible not to." "I love you too," Ethan said, holding her close. "More than I ever thought I could love anyone." They stood there in the quiet park, holding each other, until Naomi pulled back slightly. "The children," she said suddenly. "Do they know?" Ethan smiled. "I asked their permission first. I couldn't propose without making sure they were okay with it." Fresh tears spilled down Naomi's cheeks. "What did they say?" "Zara said she wants to call me Dad," Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. "Jordan said it would be cool to have a dad again. And Marcus gave me his blessing, as long as I promised to always be there." Naomi pressed her hand to her mouth, overwhelmed. "I also want to adopt them," Ethan said. "Formally, legally, if you're okay with that. I want to be their father in every way possible." "Ethan," Naomi breathed. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything," Ethan said. "Those kids are my family. You're my family. And I want the whole world to know it." Naomi pulled him into another kiss, this one deep and full of promise. When they finally headed back to the car, Naomi kept looking at the ring on her finger, smiling through her tears. "When did you become such a romantic?" she teased. "The moment I met a woman who made me want to be," Ethan replied. They decided to tell the children in person rather than over the phone. The drive to Naomi's sister's house took 2 hours, but neither of them minded. They spent the time talking about the future, when they should get married, where they should live, how to blend their lives together. "I've been looking at houses," Ethan admitted. "Bigger places, in neighborhoods with better schools. I thought maybe we could look together, find somewhere that feels right for all of us." "What about the house on Maple Street?" Naomi asked. "We can keep it," Ethan said. "Rent it out, or sell it, or keep it as a reminder of where we started. Whatever you want." "I want to keep it," Naomi said softly. "That house is where I raised my babies, where David and I built our first home. It'll always be special to me." "Then we'll keep it," Ethan said simply. When they arrived at Naomi's sister's house, it was nearly 11 o'clock. The children were still awake, much to their aunt's exasperation. "They refused to go to sleep," she said when she opened the door. "They kept saying they had to wait up for something important." The kids came running when they heard their mother's voice. "Did you do it?" Zara asked Ethan immediately, bouncing on her toes. "Did you ask her?" "Zara," Marcus hissed. "You're supposed to let them tell us." Naomi laughed, tears already forming in her eyes again. "Yes, baby," he asked me. "And?" Jordan prompted. "And I said yes," Naomi said, holding up her left hand to show them the ring. The children erupted in cheers. Zara threw herself at Ethan, who caught her and lifted her up. "Does this mean you're going to be our dad? If that's okay with you," Ethan said. "It's very okay," Zara declared, hugging him tight. Jordan crashed into both of them, wrapping his arms around Ethan's waist. "This is the best day ever." Marcus hung back for a moment, his expression more reserved but no less emotional. Ethan set Zara down and approached him. "You good with this?" Ethan asked quietly. Marcus nodded. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "Thanks for keeping your promise, for not leaving." "I'll never leave," Ethan said. "I promise you that." Marcus stepped forward and hugged Ethan, a real hug, tight and full of all the things he couldn't say out loud. Naomi watched them, her hand over her heart, tears streaming freely now. Her sister put an arm around her shoulders. "You found a good one." "I really did," Naomi said. The wedding took place 3 months later, in May, when the world was blooming with new life. They kept it small and intimate, just as they'd wanted. The ceremony was held in the backyard of the house on Maple Street, the place where everything had changed. The yard had been transformed. White chairs were arranged in neat rows, facing an arch covered in climbing roses and ivy. String lights were draped between the trees, ready to glow when evening came. Tables were set up for dinner, decorated with simple white linens and centerpieces of wildflowers. Naomi's sister served as her maid of honor. Ethan's business partner, Michael, stood as his best man. But the real stars of the ceremony were Marcus, Jordan, and Zara, who each had special roles. Marcus walked his mother down the aisle, his chest puffed with pride and his eyes shining with emotion. At 10 years old, he took the responsibility seriously, placing Naomi's hand in Ethan's with a solemnity that made several guests tear up. Jordan served as ring-bearer, carrying the rings on a small pillow with intense concentration, making sure not to drop them. And Zara was the flower girl, scattering petals with enthusiastic abandon, her pink dress twirling as she danced down the aisle. When she reached the front, she whispered loudly, "Don't mess up," to Ethan, causing the guests to laugh. Naomi looked radiant in a simple ivory dress that flowed gracefully as she moved. Her hair was styled in soft curls, adorned with small white flowers. She wore the necklace Ethan had given her at Christmas and carried a bouquet of white roses and lavender. When Ethan saw her walking toward him, his breath caught. She was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen, and the fact that she was choosing him, choosing this life with him, still felt like a miracle. The ceremony was officiated by a friend of Naomi's from church, a warm woman who'd known the family for years. "We are gathered here today," she began, "to witness the joining of two lives that were brought together by what seemed like chance, but was clearly meant to be." She spoke about love and resilience, about second chances and the courage it takes to open your heart after loss. Then it was time for the vows. Ethan went first, his voice steady despite the emotion churning inside him. "Naomi, when I came to your door a year ago, I was a different man. I was closed off, driven only by business, convinced that success meant being alone. But you showed me what I was missing. You showed me that real wealth isn't measured in dollars, it's measured in moments like this, surrounded by people who love you." He paused, looking at the children standing nearby. "You didn't just give me your love. You gave me a family. You gave me Marcus, Jordan, and Zara, who have taught me what it means to be present, to be patient, and to be brave enough to love unconditionally." Ethan's voice grew stronger. "I promise to love you through every season of life. I promise to be a partner you can count on, a shoulder to lean on, and a hand to hold when things get difficult. I promise to honor David's memory by being the best father I can be to your children, and I promise to wake up every single day grateful that you said yes." By the time he finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the audience. Naomi wiped her tears and took a deep breath before beginning her own vows. "Ethan, a year ago, I was terrified. I thought I was going to lose everything, my home, my stability, my ability to provide for my children. But then you walked into my life, and instead of taking things away, you gave me more than I ever dreamed of." Her voice wavered but held. "You showed up, not just once, but every single day. You showed up for my children when they needed a father figure. You showed up for me when I needed support. And you kept showing up, even when it would have been easier to walk away." She looked at him with all the love in her heart. "I promise to love you fiercely and faithfully. I promise to build a life with you that honors both our past and our future. I promise to support your dreams and to create new dreams together. And I promise to remind you every day that you are worthy of love, of family, of all the good things you've spent your life giving to others." Naomi's voice broke on the last words, and Ethan reached out to squeeze her hand. The officiant smiled through her own tears. "By the power vested in me, and in the presence of these witnesses, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Ethan, you may kiss your bride." Ethan pulled Naomi close and kissed her softly, tenderly, a promise sealed with love. The guests erupted in applause and cheers. But before Ethan and Naomi could walk back down the aisle, Ethan turned to the children. "Come here," he said. Marcus, Jordan, and Zara approached, and Ethan knelt down so he was at their level. "I have something for you three," he said. He pulled out 3 small boxes from his pocket and handed one to each child. "What is it?" Jordan asked, already tearing his open. Inside each box was a simple silver bracelet, engraved with words. Marcus's read, **, strength and honor, **. Jordan's read, **, courage and joy, **. Zara's read, **, love and light, **. These are to remind you that you are part of this family," Ethan said. "Not just because of your mom, but because I choose you. I choose to be your father, to love you, and to stand by you for the rest of my life." Zara threw her arms around his neck immediately. "I love you, Dad." The word Dad landed on Ethan's heart like a benediction. Jordan hugged him next. "Thanks, Dad." And then Marcus, the cautious one, the protector, stepped forward and wrapped his arms around Ethan. "Thank you for loving us," Marcus whispered. "Thank you for letting me," Ethan whispered back. The four of them stood there, wrapped in an embrace, while Naomi watched with tears streaming down her face. This was her family, complete and whole and filled with more love than she'd ever thought possible. The reception was filled with laughter, dancing, and joy. Ethan and Naomi shared their first dance to a song Naomi had chosen, an old soul classic about love that endures. As they swayed together, Ethan whispered in her ear, "Are you happy?" "Happier than I've ever been," Naomi said. "You?" "I didn't know happiness like this existed," Ethan admitted. After their dance, Ethan danced with Zara, who stood on his feet and giggled the entire time. Then he danced with Marcus, who was stiff and awkward at first but gradually relaxed. Jordan insisted on a dance too, even though he kept stepping on Ethan's toes and apologizing profusely. As the evening wore on and the string lights glowed against the darkening sky, Ethan found himself standing at the edge of the yard, watching the celebration unfold. Michael, his best man, came to stand beside him with 2 glasses of champagne. "Hell of a year you've had," Michael said, handing Ethan a glass. "That's an understatement," Ethan replied. "I've known you for 15 years, Michael said, "and I've never seen you like this." "Like what?" "Happy. Genuinely, bone-deep happy." Michael clinked his glass against Ethan's. "She's good for you. They all are." "I know," Ethan said, watching Naomi laugh at something her sister said. "I'm the luckiest man alive." "You earned it," Michael said. "You could have walked away a dozen times, but you didn't. You chose this. That takes guts." Ethan thought about all the moments that had led to this one. The rainy Tuesday when he'd knocked on Naomi's door, the drawings Zara had given him, the dinners and conversations and slow building of trust. The moment he'd realized he was in love. Every choice had led him here, to this family, to this home. "I didn't choose it," Ethan said quietly. "I think it chose me." Late that night, after the guests had left and the children were finally asleep in their rooms, Ethan and Naomi sat on the porch swing. Naomi had changed into comfortable clothes, but she still wore her wedding band, which she kept looking at as if to make sure it was real. "Mrs. Warren," Ethan said, testing out the name. Naomi smiled. "I like the sound of that." "Me too." They swayed gently in the swing, the night air cool and peaceful around them. "I've been thinking," Naomi said. "About what?" "About how different my life is now compared to a year ago, how scared I was, how alone I felt, and how you changed all of that." "We changed it together," Ethan said. "Maybe," Naomi agreed, "but you were the catalyst. You could have just done your job and walked away. But you didn't. You saw us, really saw us, and you chose to care." Ethan was quiet for a moment, then said, "I think I saw myself in you. In your struggle, your determination to keep your family together no matter what. I remembered what it felt like to need someone to show up and have no one come. And you decided to be the person who shows up," Naomi said softly. "For you," Ethan said, "for the kids, and for the part of me that needed to believe people could still choose kindness over profit." Naomi leaned her head on his shoulder. "We're going to have a good life together, aren't we?" "The best life," Ethan promised. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear one by one in the clear night sky. "Ethan," Naomi said after a while. "Yeah? Thank you. For everything. For saving our home. For loving my children. For giving us a future I didn't think we'd have. Thank you for letting me be part of it," Ethan said. "For teaching me what family really means." Naomi lifted her head and kissed him, soft and sweet. When they finally went inside, Ethan checked on the children one last time, as had become his nightly ritual. Marcus was sprawled across his bed, still wearing his suit pants but having managed to take off his jacket and tie. Ethan carefully removed the boy's shoes and pulled a blanket over him. Marcus stirred slightly but didn't wake. Jordan was curled up with about 15 stuffed animals, his mouth slightly open, dead to the world. Ethan adjusted the blankets and quietly closed the door, and Zara was asleep clutching Mr. Bear, her flower girl dress still on because she'd refused to take it off. Ethan gently smoothed her hair and whispered, "Good night, sweetheart." "Night, Daddy," Zara mumbled in her sleep. Ethan's heart swelled so much it hurt. He closed her door gently and stood in the hallway for a moment, overwhelmed by the fullness of what he felt. These were his children now. This was his family. This was his home. Asterisk, asterisk, 6 months later, asterisk, asterisk. The new house was everything they'd hoped for. It was in a quiet neighborhood with tree-lined streets and good schools. The house itself was spacious but not ostentatious, 4 bedrooms, a large backyard with room for a swing set and a garden, and a front porch where Ethan and Naomi could sit in the evenings. Each child had their own room, decorated to their individual tastes. Marcus's room had posters of his favorite basketball players and a desk where he did his homework. Jordan's room was organized chaos, full of books and Legos and projects in various states of completion. And Zara's room was an explosion of pink and purple, with shelves for her growing collection of stuffed animals. The adoption had been finalized 2 months after the wedding. Ethan would never forget standing in that courtroom, his hand clasped in Naomi's, while the judge made it official. Marcus, Jordan, and Zara Carter were now Marcus, Jordan, and Zara Warren. They were his children, legally, officially, permanently. Marcus had cried, though he'd tried to hide it. Jordan had bounced in his seat with excitement, and Zara had climbed into Ethan's lap the moment the judge finished speaking, declaring, "Now you're really my daddy." "I was always really your daddy," Ethan had whispered. Now everyone knows it. Life had settled into a beautiful routine. Ethan still ran his company, but he'd restructured his priorities. He left the office by 6 every evening. He attended every basketball game, every school play, every parent-teacher conference. He coached Jordan's little league team and helped Zara with her reading homework. And every night, he came home to a house full of noise and laughter and love. Naomi had been promoted at her job and was thriving in her career. She and Ethan worked as partners in every sense, sharing responsibilities, supporting each other's dreams, building a life that honored both their independence and their unity. One Saturday morning in early fall, Ethan woke to the sound of chaos downstairs. He smiled before he even opened his eyes. This was the sound of home. He found Naomi in the kitchen making pancakes while simultaneously mediating an argument between Jordan and Zara about whose turn it was to set the table. "Morning," Ethan said, kissing Naomi's cheek. "Morning," she replied, flipping a pancake. "Can you please tell your children that they both have to help set the table?" "My children," Ethan said with mock offense. "Yes, yours. I'm disowning them until they learn to cooperate." Ethan turned to Jordan and Zara. "You heard your mother. Both of you. Table setting. Now." They grumbled but obeyed, and Naomi shot Ethan a grateful smile. Marcus appeared in the doorway, still half asleep. "Is breakfast ready?" "5 minutes," Naomi said. The family gathered around the table, passing plates of pancakes and bacon, orange juice being poured, syrup being fought over. It was beautifully ordinary, and Ethan had never been more grateful for ordinary in his life. "So," Naomi said as they ate, "I was thinking we could all go to the park this afternoon, have a picnic, maybe fly the kite Jordan got for his birthday." "Can we bring the soccer ball?" Marcus asked. "Can we bring Mr. Bear?" Zara asked. "Can we bring everything?" Jordan asked. "We'll bring some things," Ethan said diplomatically. "But yes, let's go to the park. It's a beautiful day." After breakfast, while Naomi got the kids ready, Ethan stepped out onto the front porch with his coffee. He looked out at the quiet street, at the neighbors walking their dogs, at the leaves just beginning to turn gold and red. A year and a half ago, he'd been alone in a penthouse, building an empire that meant nothing because he had no one to share it with. Now he had everything. A wife who challenged him and loved him in equal measure. 3 children who called him Dad and filled his days with purpose. A home that wasn't just a building but a sanctuary. Michael had been right. He'd earned this by choosing it, by showing up, by being brave enough to let people in. But more than that, he'd been given a gift, a second chance, a family, a home. Naomi came out and stood beside him, slipping her hand into his. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "How different my life is now," Ethan said. "How different I am." "Better?" Naomi asked with a smile. "Infinitely better," Ethan confirmed. From inside, they could hear the children arguing about something. Shoes, probably, or who got to sit in which seat in the car. Naomi hid. I should go referee. In a minute, Ethan said, pulling her close. Let me just hold you for a minute. Naomi leaned into him, and they stood there together, wrapped in each other and in the life they'd built. I love you, Ethan said. I love you too, Naomi replied. And in that moment, with the sound of his children's voices inside and his wife in his arms, Ethan Warren knew with absolute certainty that he was exactly where he was meant to be. He had come to evict a woman and her children. Instead, he'd found his way home. 5 years later, the house on Maple Street was rented to a young couple with a baby on the way. Ethan and Naomi stopped by occasionally to check on the property, and each time, Ethan felt a rush of nostalgia. This was where it all began. The Warren family had grown. Marcus was 15 now, tall and confident, captain of his high school basketball team. Jordan was 12, still enthusiastic about everything, recently discovering a passion for photography. And Zara was 10, creative and spirited, already talking about becoming an artist. And there was one more addition. A little boy named David Ethan Warren, named after Naomi's late husband and his adoptive father, was now 3 years old, a bundle of energy with Naomi's warm brown eyes and Ethan's determined chin. Ethan had been nervous about having a biological child, worried that it might somehow create a divide between him and the children he'd adopted. But Marcus, Jordan, and Zara had been nothing but excited about having a baby brother. He's ours too, Marcus had said when Naomi told them she was pregnant. Family is family. And he'd been right. David adored his older siblings, following them around the house like a devoted puppy, and they doted on him in return. That afternoon, Ethan stood in the backyard of their home, watching his family. Naomi was setting up a picnic blanket under the big oak tree, her movements graceful despite chasing after an energetic 3-year-old. She'd just celebrated her 40th birthday, and Ethan thought she was more beautiful now than the day he'd met her. Marcus was teaching David how to throw a football, his patience endless as the toddler's throws went in every direction except forward. Jordan was taking photographs of everything, the clouds, the trees, Zara making flower crowns in the grass, and Zara was singing to herself, weaving stems together with the focused concentration she brought to all her creative projects. This was his life now. Not board meetings and profit margins, though those still existed, not empty penthouses and lonely evenings, which felt like a lifetime ago. This was noise and chaos, and love in its purest form. Michael approached from the side gate, bringing his own family, his wife Sarah, and their 2 daughters. "Warren," he called out, "we brought dessert." "You're just in time," Ethan said, clasping his friend's hand in greeting. Over the years, Michael's family and Ethan's had become close. Their children played together, they spent holidays together, and Michael had become something Ethan never thought he'd have a true brother. As the afternoon wore on and the families mingled, Naomi came to stand beside Ethan, little David perched on her hip. "Happy?" she asked, the question she'd asked him countless times over the years. "Always," Ethan replied, kissing her temple. "Dada!" David reached for Ethan, and he took the boy, settling him against his chest. "You know," Naomi said, watching the other children play, "I was thinking about that first day you came to the house, how terrified I was." "I was pretty terrified too," Ethan admitted, though for different reasons. "Were you really?" Naomi looked at him curiously. "You seemed so calm, so in control." "I was a mess inside," Ethan said. "I'd spent so long building walls, and then Zara handed me that drawing and I felt every single wall start to crack." Naomi smiled. "That drawing is still in your office, isn't it?" "Framed on my desk," Ethan confirmed, "along with every other picture the kids have ever made me." "You've gone soft, Warren," Naomi teased. "Completely," Ethan agreed, not even slightly ashamed. Marcus jogged over, slightly out of breath. "Dad, can we set up the volleyball net? Jordan wants to take action shots." The word "dad" still made Ethan's heart swell, even after all these years. "Sure thing," Ethan said. "It's in the garage. Want to help me get it?" "Yeah, let's go." As Ethan handed David back to Naomi and walked toward the garage with Marcus, the teenager said, "Hey, Dad." "Yeah?" "I've been thinking about what I want to study in college." Ethan's chest tightened. College. His son was already thinking about college. "What are you considering?" he asked. "Architecture," Marcus said. "I want to design buildings that become homes for families. Like what you do. Kind of, but from the beginning. Ethan stopped walking and looked at Marcus, this young man who'd once been a frightened 10-year-old boy trying to protect his family. "That's a great choice," Ethan said. "You'd be amazing at it." "You think so?" "I know so." Marcus smiled, then hesitated. "Can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't come to our house that day? If someone else had handled the eviction?" Ethan considered the question seriously. "Sometimes, and it terrifies me to think I almost missed all of this." "But you didn't," Marcus said. "You came, and you stayed, even though you didn't have to." "I had to," Ethan said quietly. "I just didn't know it yet." Marcus nodded, understanding in a way that only someone who'd lived through those dark days could. "I'm really glad you're my dad," Marcus said. Ethan pulled his son into a hug. "I'm really glad I'm your dad too." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, the families gathered around the picnic blankets for dessert. Zara had convinced everyone to make s'mores, despite the fact that it was only late afternoon and there was no campfire. "We can use the kitchen torch," she'd insisted, and somehow she'd gotten her way. Now she was carefully toasting marshmallows while Jordan documented the process with his camera. Ethan sat with his back against the oak tree, Naomi tucked against his side, David asleep in her lap. "We should do this more often," Sarah said from the other blanket. "This is nice." "Agreed," Michael said. "Though I think Ethan's kids are trying to corrupt my kids with all this sugar." "Too late," Ethan said. "Zara already taught them how to make triple-decker s'mores." Everyone laughed, and the conversation flowed easily. Stories from work, plans for the upcoming school year, debates about which vacation spot they should all go to together. As the evening settled in and the first stars began to appear, Ethan found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought him here. He thought about the angry, lonely man he'd been so focused on success that he'd forgotten what success was actually for. He thought about the day he'd knocked on Naomi's door, expecting a simple business transaction and finding instead the beginning of everything that mattered. He thought about every choice he'd made since then to see Naomi and her children as people rather than problems, to open his heart despite his fear, to choose love over the safety of isolation. And he thought about how his definition of wealth had completely transformed. He was still successful in business. Warren Properties had expanded, thrived, and become known not just for profit, but for ethical practices and community investment. But that wasn't what made him rich. What made him rich was this sitting under a tree with his wife beside him, his children laughing nearby, surrounded by friends who'd become family. This was wealth. This was home. Naomi stirred beside him, carefully adjusting David without waking him. "What are you thinking about?" she asked softly. Ethan looked down at her, at the woman who'd changed his entire world. "I'm thinking about how I came to evict you," he said, "and instead, you saved me." Naomi's eyes glistened. "We saved each other." "Maybe," Ethan agreed, "but you gave me something I'd stopped believing existed." "What's that?" "A reason to come home." Naomi reached up and touched his face. "You are home, Ethan. You've been home since the day you chose to stay." From across the yard, Zara called out, "Dad, come try my super s'more. I made it special for you." "Coming," Ethan called back. He kissed Naomi's forehead, then carefully stood and walked over to where Zara was waiting with a s'more that was indeed spectacularly oversized. "Wow," he said, taking it. "This is impressive." "I know," Zara said proudly. "I'm an artist." Ethan took a bite, getting marshmallow and chocolate all over his face, and Zara giggled. "You have chocolate on your nose," she said. "So do you," Ethan replied, gently tapping her nose. Jordan immediately snapped a photo. "This is going in the family album." "Everything goes in the family album," Marcus said from where he was playing keep away with Michael's daughters. "That's because everything is worth remembering," Ethan said. And he meant it. Every moment, the big ones and the small ones, the perfect ones and the messy ones, they were all worth remembering. Because this was his life now. Not perfect, but real. Not easy, but worth it. Not what he'd planned, but so much better than anything he could have imagined. As darkness fell and the families reluctantly began to pack up, Ethan helped Naomi carry a sleeping David inside, while the older kids cleaned up the yard. He tucked his youngest son into bed, kissing his forehead and whispering, "Good night, buddy." Then he checked on the others, Marcus reading in bed, Jordan editing photos on his computer, Zara already asleep with Mr. Bear, and about a dozen other stuffed animals. Finally, he found Naomi in their bedroom, already changed into comfortable clothes, taking off her jewelry. "Long day," she said with a contented sigh. "Good day," Ethan corrected, coming up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist. Naomi leaned back against him. "The best kind of day." They stood there for a moment, comfortable in the silence that came from years of knowing each other deeply. "Ethan?" Naomi said. Thank you." "For what?" "For all of this. For giving us a life I never dreamed we'd have." Ethan turned her around to face him. "Naomi, you gave me a life. Before you, I was just existing, going through the motions, building an empire that meant nothing because I had no one to share it with." He cupped her face in his hands. "You taught me what love looks like, what family feels like, what home means. Everything good in my life started the day you opened that door." Naomi's eyes filled with tears. "We're quite the pair, aren't we? Both convinced the other saved us." "Maybe we both did," Ethan said. "Maybe that's what love is. Two people saving each other and building something beautiful together." "I like that," Naomi said, rising on her toes to kiss him. Later, as they lay in bed, Naomi's head on Ethan's chest, she said sleepily, "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd sent someone else that day?" "All the time," Ethan admitted. "And every time I do, I'm grateful I didn't. Whatever instinct made me go personally, whatever force brought me to your door, I'm thankful for it every single day." "Me too," Naomi murmured. "Me too." As Naomi drifted off to sleep, Ethan lay awake a while longer, thinking about the journey that had brought him here. From a lonely penthouse to a house full of laughter. From a man who trusted no one to a husband and father who'd built his entire world on trust and love. From someone who measured success in dollars to someone who measured it in moments, like these quiet nights with his wife beside him and his children safe in their beds. He thought about the scared woman who'd opened the door that rainy Tuesday, trembling as she'd asked for more time. And he thought about the man who'd stood on that porch, ready to do his job and walk away, not knowing his entire life was about to change. That man was gone now. In his place was someone who understood that the greatest wealth wasn't in property or investments. It was in the people who loved you, in the family you built, in the home you created together. Ethan closed his eyes, wrapped his arm around Naomi, and let himself drift off to sleep. Content, grateful, home. Sometimes the moments that seem like endings are actually beginnings in disguise. Sometimes the person you least expect becomes the one who changes everything. And sometimes, when you're brave enough to open your heart, you discover that home isn't a place, it's the people who love you exactly as you are. If this story touched your heart, we'd love to hear from you in the comments. Share your thoughts, your own stories of unexpected blessings, or just let us know where you're watching from. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and hit that notification bell, because stories that celebrate love, redemption, and the power of showing up are what we're all about. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And remember, you never know when one simple act of kindness might change someone's entire world. Until next time.